Unfortunately, out here in the real world, there comes times in our lives to where we need a little bit of help. Maybe we need some help getting through something that we've experienced earlier in our life. Maybe we need a little help dealing with day-to-day things, or maybe avoiding things that we're heading towards and we need assistance. Need a little bit of therapy, if you will, a therapist. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. The strongest people I know are the ones that admit they need help and, more importantly, get that help. We have someone on our show today coming up next who is right there with them. She is a therapist, been doing it quite a while. Let's meet her now. Her name is Briana Lefman, and she is Hamsa Healing Space. Briana, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I must say, you have quite the impressive background. I was looking at the notes today prior to talking to you, and my jaw just dropped. As a guy who crammed his 4-year degree into 5 years, I'm really impressed with people like you who've done everything you have. So just give us, before we get started, just a little bit of the background on your personal background before Hamsa and your education to get you where you are today.
Well, my personal background, I'm very open with all of my patients. I came from a lot of personal trauma, a lot of personal losses. There was a lot of addiction in my family system. And when I pursued my education, I initially thought that I was going to go in a different direction. And when I traveled abroad, I ended up living abroad for about 10 years, traveling around the globe and meeting different people of all different ethnic backgrounds, and really starting to understand that in order to make a bigger difference, I had to go on and pursue a higher advanced degree. Wasn't excited about the idea of, having to go to graduate school and but eventually, after studying abroad and then returning back to the States and completing my graduate work, it was soon after I ended up, really getting in the trenches. I did a lot of work. I started my work back in locked acute psychiatric inpatient facilities, worked with a lot of long-term facilities with severe mental illness, severe addiction, kind of those stereotypical stories you hear about where an individual might not know themselves any longer. And eventually, I started focusing more on a niche in my private practice.
Well, like I said, you have quite the experience, both from an educational background, personal background, and now professional background. So as we get to where you are today, give us a couple of bullet points on the types of people that you serve, that you work with.
I usually tell people I work with humans, but there are, I work with individuals who are kind of just starting to discover that they never really addressed their childhood trauma. I run a women's adult female group for sexual trauma survivors. So a lot of the patients that I see are primarily females that have survived either childhood sexual abuse and or sexual trauma in adulthood. I work with addiction, substance use disorders, which also includes alcohol as well. I work with high functioning autism. I work with cognitive impairments. So individuals and caregivers, family members that might have a family member that's experienced a traumatic brain injury. I work a lot with relationship stressors and family dynamics. I don't want to ever, state that there are certain criterion that I won't work with. The reason why is some diagnoses and some conditions require a higher level of care and a team. And I want to make sure that when that is the case, that I coordinate, continuity of care for the right fit. I serve a variety of populations in my practice. And that women's group is a good origin of also providing a support group. So I do a little bit of individual as well as family dynamics and group therapy.
So keeping on the theme with the women's group you work with the things we're going through now, this has got to be a digital group. You're not meeting collectively, but prior to COVID, was it still a online thing, or did you meet in person with everyone?
Thank you for asking that. I probably should highlight that. It used to only be in person, obviously, pre-COVID. However, the group has been much more meaningful on a virtual platform. And the reason being is so many more individuals are now able to participate in the group because they're able to stay in the comfort of their own home. They don't have to worry about traffic. They don't have to worry about coordination of, babysitters, and they don't have to worry about logistics with their employer. It's actually been much more meaningful. And because it's on a virtual platform, people feel more comfortable participating more actively. So the group, I actually am going to be keeping it long-term on a virtual platform because it's been requested to stay as such. So it's been really meaningful to transition.
I must say it's so nice, for lack of a better word, to hear something positive, if you would, related to COVID, because yes, you're able to reach so many more people, and there's so many people in need. The more you can reach, the better. And I'm just curious, whether back in the in-person days or even now, do you find a lot of times when someone first gets involved with the group, immediately they get a little bit of relief simply because they realize, hey, it's not just me. There's other people that have gone through similar situations. Is that the case?
Absolutely. You nailed it. It's the common understanding and validation of not having to say much and just know you're being understood and met with a sense of complete understanding, with a lack of judgment, with a lack of shame. Conducting virtual therapy has been so rewarding because there are so many people in all different circumstances that in that moment desperately need a human connection that's just authentic. It's simple. I can meet you where you are. I've done therapy with a woman who just had given birth. I have another patient who pulled over on the side of the road. This is something where I'm able to ground you. I'm able to meet you where you are and provide that gentleness and compassion. And the group has been a grounding anchor for many people.
Well, and then again, let's remind everyone, even with the group, there may be occasions to where individuals need some more personal assistance, if you will. So I'm guessing you can either go to a breakout session or schedule a whole separate one-on-one Zoom appointment that way. Fair enough? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's touch on the high-functioning autism spectrum. I know some folks that have been impacted with this, either personally or through a family member. What do you do with regards to this group?
So it's interesting. This is by far one of the most unique, wonderful populations of individuals. They have such a wonderful, unique view and lens of social interaction and social relationships. I do a lot of work with building an understanding and maintenance of social skills, as well as retaining those skills so that individuals can expand and develop relationships in different aspects of their life. One of the other parts of my practice is I provide vocational counseling. I'm also a certified rehabilitation counselor. So we do a lot of, mock interviews and a lot of understanding of, how would I respond to this question and what would be appropriate. So with that group, it requires a unique set of interventions. It's very rewarding.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I've really enjoyed it. I know everyone else did as well. Continued success with your practice. Thank you much.
Thank you so much.